It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality Live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Nonprofits, where everything is made up and the points don't matter. Oh,
I got that one.
Hold on, guys. Hold on. Oh, I'm sorry. Wrong intro. Let me get this right. Greetings and salutations, and welcome back to another episode of the Nonprofits, the show where we discuss news and topics of the day from a skeptical, humanist perspective. My name is Cynthia McDonald, and today we're going to talk about Erie Catholic Diocese launching earlier confirmations. This is a way for them to bring in more people into the fold if they can eat their wafer and drink their grape juice a little bit earlier. Next, we're going to be talking about gun violence in schools. Followed by that is going to be a report about the Southern Baptist Convention stonewalling abuse victims. And finally, a shit internet apologists say about Greg Locke and his supposed tax exempt status. Or is it? We're going to talk about it, plus more. But before we do that, let's do this. Let us introduce our panel for this day. Starting from my far left, welcoming back our one and only Cindy Plaza. Hey, Cindy, how you doing?
Hi, I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing well. Thank you for joining us for this discussion. I do appreciate you being here with us today.
Me too, thanks.
Awesome sauce. Next that's in line, we have the cutest cartoon in the entire world because he self-proclaimed it. Ateo. How you doing?
Oh yeah, hi Cynthia. I'm so happy to be here back. I'm so happy to be with you once again. Remember, I'm behind you. I want your record of most times and done prophets, so here I am.
Yes, you are here. And you know what? You being the cutest cartoon in the world, it's not conjecture, it's just fact because science.
Thank you.
And last but definitely not least, to my immediate left, welcoming back no stranger to the ACA or to the YouTube spaces, Miss Genevieve. How are you, darling?
I am great. I am so excited to be back. We have a lot to talk about, and I can't think of any other group of people that I would like to talk about all of these things about with.
Yeah, all that about with, yes. And I can't think of another group of about withs that I rather talk about these abouts with as well. So let's get into it, shall we? But before we do that, oh, well, it's late, guys. Don't worry about it. Anyway, but this is a show that is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to the separation of religion and government and promoting positive atheism. As with all of our shows, links to today's topics and news we discuss are available in the description below. And remember that this is a reminder that if you want to come into the show prepared, you can check out the Nonprofits Facebook fan page every Friday night for a list of the articles ahead of time. All right, guys, so let's go ahead and move into our very first segment. And I believe, Teo, this is all you, darling. Take us away.
Oh. Sure, okay. Yeah, as the cartoon of the show, I felt it was my duty to talk about this specific topic. Why? Let me tell you a personal anecdote before we start. You see, when I was a child, there wasn't a lot of things on TV. Saturday morning cartoons were not a thing where I lived, but I did have a TV evangelist, televangelist, with where I would watch a whole freaking hour of evangelical programs just to watch a 3 minute short cartoon called Puntito. In English, that is Jot for you in the United States. And it was nothing but a short cartoon with a biblical teaching at the end, or a Christian teaching. And why am I talking about this? Why am I telling you this personal story of me spending a whole hour waiting to watch a very short Christian cartoon? Because for me, it was attractive. It was interesting, and it was one of the many things that made me fall in love with religion. Because I'm sure you know that I was a religious person for a long time. And this article that we're checking today, which is, by the way, from goerie.com, please check it, guys. It explains, and let me quote: confirmation in the Catholic Diocese of Erie will no longer be a 1 year and done foundation for faith, and it won't be limited to the classroom. Ooh, interesting. Sorry, I'm mixing Spanish. This is diocese. In English, I guess it's diocese. Diocese?
Diocese.
I will assume that's it. Cool. Not only is changing the timing for confirmation in the church from 11th to 9th grade, it's also introducing new programs for children before they are confirmed and for teenagers after confirmation to help root them in faith. And this is the key part of this. They are desperate for children and they want to root them in faith. Let me keep reading. Children in sixth through eighth grades will learn and share about their faith in brief small group sessions. After confirmation, teens will continue to meet in small groups, work with mentors to tackle faith, spiritual, and life issues, and have opportunity to serve, both in the church and in mission work. And as I was saying, this is obviously a desperate attempt to attract children to their roles because they know that the younger you begin, the more successful indoctrination is. And did you know that according to research, by age 10, 17% of children have left the Catholic Church, and by the time they are in confirmation or graduating age, that number jumps to almost 70%. So obviously, the Catholic Church is desperate and they are looking for ways to keep children and indoctrinate them from childhood. So, who wants to take it from here?
Well, that is some fracking bull concerning the Catholic Church. But then again, I definitely would say that this particular whole thing comes because, of course, they're losing a lot of people for obvious reasons. You know, the Catholic Church has a very long history of scandals concerning sexual abuse, kid rape, nun rape, rape, just raping people. That's and not even just like sexually, but also raping people of their money and also of their time, in my opinion, because a lot of people spend a lot of time in these particular places where they're not necessarily being taught anything that is going to be helpful to them going forward in their lives. And that's my take on it. But I definitely want to hear from the panel. Genevieve, what do you have to say about this whole article and what's happening with the early age of confirmation of children?
Yeah, so funny thing, when I first opened this article and I saw there's that picture of them taking a selfie, my mind immediately went to George Carlin and Dogma, and it feels like this was really sort of like their Buddy Christ moment of rebranding and getting with the times with these hip kids. And I think that they had mentioned that they wanted to go from like these long, drawn out like classroom settings to a more like a more personal and like short and a a much more friendly format, I think, for what they think the kids want today. Um, and while I did laugh at the beginning because of course I thought of George Carlin, why wouldn't I? Um, it ultimately it's kind of disappointing. It's definitely a bummer because we're right that this does come down to the fact that they just want to ensure that these children are indoctrinated more successfully. I was actually really stoked to see that by the time they're 12, 67% have already said no thank you. Um, and I shouldn't be surprised that they're trying to change that, but it feels like a win, and they're trying to take this one away from me.
Oh, wow. Possibly it's a step in the right direction. Step in the right direction for the children. However, it seems like the Catholic Church is scrambling themselves. Cindy, what you got on this, hon?
Yeah, as you said, Catholics are on the decline. This feels like the last jolts of a dying fish. Um, it's the latest attempt by white old men to keep their power as much as possible by keeping children indoctrinated. And from the article and from what Theo said, it looks like the Catholic Church has gained a better understanding of human psychology because um, they they try to indoctrinate kids younger. They also use peer pressure because most of the animations and events are group based. So uh, if you don't feel like believing, then you have the peer pressure upon you, and so from their point of view, that's quite smart. Um, and my mind was was going to the idea about cannibalism, which starts getting younger and younger with the Catholic Church. Um, but the main issue I have here is that although I agree with what Genevieve said, I think I'm afraid that this might be a response to um, children getting more and more knowledge about who they are, and indoctrinating them earlier makes them more prone to avoid all LGBTQ issues. I mean, if you try to indoctrinate children very young, then they haven't figured out most of the cases who they are, if they are trans, if they are um, uh, bi, if they are gay, and so making sure that they are into the religion before that happens um, makes their hold stronger to the kids, and that's what I'm afraid of. It's that um, this might impact LGBTQ children more than the others.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Uh,
the Catholic. Oh,
no,
sorry,
go ahead,
Cynthia.
Teo. No, go
I
ahead.
was
Go ahead.
just I was just going to say that the Catholic Church has known this for ages, and they are just being more obvious. But there is a reason why the Catholic Church has had some specific researchers or universities. It's not because they want to enlighten humanity, it's because they need knowledge to keep power, to keep control. And this psychology is one of the ways how they know and they learn and understand how to indoctrinate people. And they just have learned the younger you start, the more time that you're going to keep them, and they have realized that schools should be changing. I was reading about something else, and I found out about how schools are supposed to be, start being shorter and start changing into a more how to call it, a shorter way of working. And the Catholic Church has realized that children are not going to be 1 hour and a half entertained in a classroom, listening up at an old guy talking about whatever. They need shorter things. They got used to TikTok, 30 seconds, or you get them in 30 seconds, or you lose their attention. And the
Mm-hmm.
Catholic Church realized that and is trying to adapt desperately to this. And it's going to be hard. Luckily, it's going to be hard for them because they are still this old-fashioned group of old guys. But the points that they realize and that they are not being they are being very obvious, so they are not being subtle at all in this agenda that they have, is worrying, and we should be paying attention to this.
It's kind of funny. Let me ask the panel. I think that you were Teo, Genevieve. I don't necessarily. I think that I've heard you say previously that. Excuse me. I drank some water and it did not happen. It did not do what it was supposed to do. But I believe, Genevieve, you said that you previously, I watched you on separate shows, that you didn't grow up religious. Is that correct? Okay. But
Yeah,
Cindy,
so
yeah,
I did
yeah,
not.
yeah, okay. And but Jesus, I'm so sorry, guys. But I wondered, Cindy and Tail, were you guys raised Catholic? You weren't,
I
Cindy?
was.
You were. Okay. All right. So, Teo, maybe you can relate to this a bit. Even though like I wasn't Roman Catholic, my father was. I went to Roman Catholic school. I went to grammar school, middle school, and high school at Catholic. And one of the things that was something that was always kind of thrown out as a caveat, and almost like it looked like a rite of passage, is confirmation. Like that is something that a lot of us were taught to look forward to. It's kind of like solidifying your space as the transitioning part of an adult.
Yeah,
It was yeah, it was up there with getting your driver's license a little bit. Teo, can you
yeah.
can
I mean,
you
confirmation
corroborate that?
is very important for the Catholic Church because the
Yeah.
first time that you're baptized, you're a baby, so you have no
Hmm.
choice. But with confirmation, you're actually confirming your faith. You are
Right.
saying, yes, I was baptized as a baby, but now as an adult, well, as a teen actually, I
Hmm.
decide that this is the right religion and that I accept the baptism that was put on me when I was a baby. That's why it's
Yeah.
so important for people. I didn't get there because I got bored.
Yeah, but going back to that whole idea of how important it was and how it was taught to
Hmm.
kids, this is something that you should look forward to, because it's confirming your choosing this faith, right? And it's also showing that a maturity level in you because you've chosen this particular faith. And
Actually, let
yeah,
me stop you because it's not choosing. You're not choosing. You are
no,
realizing or you're accepting that is the right religion. That is kind of the confirming
okay.
idea.
Okay, okay, all right, all right. Well, I mean, well, when I'm using the words choosing, like it's kind of like, okay, you've been in this Catholic church for so long, maybe you're going to school, this is what you're being taught as the right thing, and then you're choosing to accept that this is the right thing. So that I'm using that in that particular format. But regardless of that, it's still taught to you that this is the proper way to go. So in some cases, because it is not in some cases, but in this case particularly, it's still a part of the machine of indoctrination. And because that is that, the Catholic Church in of itself knows that if we can kind of hook them in earlier, it may keep them longer, because we push it so much as this is the second sacrament that you will receive, because I believe there's seven sacraments in the Catholic Church. And first, of course, is baptism, which is not really baptism according to Protestants, because they're just like sprinkling water on you when you were a baby. So it's more like christening, but whatever, semantics, tomato, tomato. And then the second sacrament would be when you are roughly like around 12 years old, that you are going to be confirmed and you are confirming your faith, etc., etc. So since this is being taught that, this I see this more of a way to say that, okay, we're pushing this really hard. So in order to keep them, we're just going to kind of like hook them into confirming how important this is for them so that they can stay.
Mhm.
Is that the general sentiment that we all pretty much got when we were reading this? If I'm wrong, I please correct me, but that's kind of what I got, that this is the important, this is being pushed as an important portion for the sacrament to be done earlier, so that it can keep them longer, because it's always been pushed as a sacrament that is something that's so important and appropriate for children to participate in, so that they won't depart from it when they're adults, and they bring their children in and their children in, and the circle of life continues. But I am of the mind that as more knowledge about how the universe works and how the world works and how people work, that it's less of a need for these particular institutions to be available for children in some shape, way, or form, because they are no longer the center of like education and learning, like the Catholic Church was for a very, very long time. I mean, like, I know I was taught that like going to Catholic school is the best thing ever for you. That's where you're going to get the best education. And that's going to be the thing that's going to open the doors of opportunity in order for you to actually move forward in your life with better high schools and better colleges. Not those nasty public schools. How dare you? But now that I see that most people are like, no, I'm not really feeling that, then they're kind of like just like falling away. And like the Catholic Church is like, oh no, please stay, please stay. I know that we fucked up a lot. We fucked up a whole lot, but we're getting better. We got Francis, right? Right? He kind of woke, right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, at least the Catholic Church, largely does a little bit better on science than some Protestant denominations we have in the U.S., but that's not really saying much. But I do think that your analysis there is totally spot on. And I think I would just add that it's important to remember that, from my perspective, I see this as sort of like this manipulative indoctrination of like, oh, you're just trying to get your hooks in there before they can leave. And I understand that for for the people in the Erie diocese, they are genuine in their faith. They do think that what they're doing is going to be helping children. They genuinely do believe that this is their way to get children closer to God. But as Cindy pointed out, this ultimately will lead to a lot of trauma because these children will be, instilled with these beliefs and these dogmas that are inherently damaging to many people. It's I know that they think that they are just helping their community, and that is exactly what they're doing from their perspective, but I cannot I can't see a way that this will turn out well for everybody.
I agree.
If I can
I'm
give,
Yeah, go ahead, Cindy.
sorry, if I can give you just a little bit of hope, uh, in Western Europe, which is mostly Christian, for the people who are atheists, they are mostly Christian. Uh, like my brother lives in Spain, which is still relatively religious compared to France or Belgium or other countries. Um, there is still confirmation, but it's for the kids, it's just about the gifts.
Mm,
They receive a lot of gifts that day. They are the center of the attraction. It's about them. It's like a big birthday basically, and so they pretty much don't care about the rest. So
You can
that's
receive gifts? That's weird.
yeah. Yeah, I got gifts on my confirmation and I got a whole new white outfit. Go me.
We are being screwed down here.
Yeah, you guys are. Y'all need to talk to y'all diocese about that. But Teo, before we move on, we're gonna get the last word to you since you brought us into the segment.
Oh, well, all religions try to do this. Actually, I mentioned that example in the beginning because televangelists, they are trying to get children as well, even if they don't make it as obvious as the Catholic Church. And the reason why the Catholic Church has been losing children is because the Mass is long and boring. Compare it with the Jehovah Witnesses. They go to your house, they teach you in a very straightforward ways with I still remember my first book of biblical stories. They are very short stories with nice illustrations. They get your attention, catch your eye, and show you the nice part of the Bible that they want to show you. And that, as a child, it hooks you. And now they even have their cartoons, Sophia and Caleb. They try to teach you the Christian way of living, which is awful, by the way. Women shouldn't study and stuff like that. Ugh. Well, but the thing is, the Catholic Church was left behind because of this. And as we mentioned, 67% of children don't get to confirmation and they just leave the church. And they are desperate. I like Genevieve's point of view that this is a silver lining. It means, oh yeah, they are losing people. The problem is that they realized and they are going to take action against it. So Once again, we have to be careful about that.
I totally agree with everything that everyone said because all of you all are spot on. And you know what else is spot on? Our veteran subscribers, the 11,000 point, etc., etc., etc. subscribers that have come to our particular channel. We want to thank you guys. Thank you for viewing us. Thank you for tuning in every Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. We really do appreciate you so much. And for those who happen to be watching, maybe this is your first time coming to see the nonprofits. You know, you heard somebody say, hey, you know that show, the nonprofits, the flagship show of the ACA? You should watch them. They premiere every Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, or right now, Central Daylight Time, but that's neither here nor there. It's Central. So you guys are watching now. That's right. Yes, you are. So if you are watching us now and you have not subscribed yet, get on that. Like, subscribe like right now. And once you subscribe, please like this video and ring that bell so that you've always know when a new nonprofits episode premieres. As I said, at least about 3 dozen times that, no, it wasn't 3 dozen times, but it was a lot, that it is Sundays at 3 p.m. Central Time. But you already know that because I just told you it's 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Then
don't we have a specific gift if we reach 20,000? Like
if
J Mike is supposed to shave.
oh, I didn't know that. So people, here's the thing. Let's get us to 20,000 subscribers so that J Mike will shave. And and we will all say evidentiary. And then after that, share the link to our channel with your friends, your family members, your coworkers, the neighbor guy you don't like, the neighbor guy you do like, and people that's in between, and everyone and everybody else. And let's get the word out so that we can start helping the fundraisers. Oh, yes, we do have fundraisers now. So when you happen to come in, this right below me, there's going to be a little area where it shows like a number and it shows like where we're trying to get to, and you can help that number now that we can now host fundraisers on our channel. And I don't know if you are aware that the Atheist Community of Austin has another YouTube channel. I don't know if you knew that, but you should know. So make sure you check out the Atheist Experience Network, a channel where you can find all ACA shows in podcast form. Subscribe at tiny.cc/AEN podcast to listen to episodes of the nonprofits, the Atheist Experience, secular sexuality, and all of our ACA shows so you don't miss a single episode. All right. All right. So now that we got all that out the way, let's go into our next segment. And Cindy, this is all on you.
So we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, the school shooting that took place in Uvalde. So initially we planned to have 3 articles to talk about it. One written by NPR, the other one on The Hill, and the last one on the Texas Tribune. But since a lot happened since then, we learned a great deal of things. I'm going to focus instead of going through a timeline. You will have one timeline written by the Texas Tribune in the description of the video, so you can go and see that minute by minute exactly what happened. But basically, what happened is that one 18 years old who bought 2 AR-15s on his birthday, his 18th birthday, decided that he was going to shoot his grandmother and then children in school. So he did shoot his grandmother. She survived. She called 911, and then the shooter went to Uvalde school. Then he met the police in the first time, but he managed to get into the school and shoot 19 persons, so 17 children and 2 teachers. So that's basically the biggest mass shooting in a school since uh, Parkland, I think. Um, and so we know a lot. We know that the police was there for over an hour and they did nothing because apparently they were afraid of being shot. We know that children inside the school called the police several times. We also know that the police told the children to manifest themselves, and when they did, they got shot. So there was a lot of errors on the police side. And despite that, when the governor of Texas, the day after, did his big presentation, the message was that the police was amazing. They stopped and killed the shooter, and it could have been worse. That's what his words were. So we're going to talk a lot about mass shootings in general and possible solutions. But before that, I would like to hear about the rest of the panel. Theo, what do you think about this?
Should I take it, guys?
Yeah, go
As
ahead,
the
Theo.
foreign, I do have some stuff to talk about. I have talked against the USA before, and I'm going to do it again. And I am about to compare the greatest country of the planet with, oh yeah, how did Trump call us? The shithole countries, also called Mexican countries. These very awful places full of dirty immigrants where violence happens all the time. And do you know what we don't have in here? School shootings. Not
Mm.
even one. Search in South America, in all Hispanoamerica, if there are school shootings. If there is one, that is going to be the exception and it's going to be a historical event. But we never have school shootings, despite, all these ideas of violence, all these ideas of, oh, yeah, there are gangs down there. Well, there might be, but trust me, here they don't have the military grade weapons that they have in the USA. In here, we don't have those huge malls full of guns until filled with shotguns until where the eyes meet the until the end. Whatever, I don't remember how to say that in English. Um, so here, if you want to buy a gun, you have to check your papers. You need a special course. You have to learn how to use the gun. You need special authorization, and you have to prove that you are not a danger to society. I always quote this Simpsons episode when Homer wants to get a gun and they tell him, oh, you attacked an ex-president, you created an international conflict, you are cataloged as a dangerous person, so you can only have 3 guns. And that's it. And guys, I know it's a parody, but we look at the USA from here and it looks like that. We were talking here at the beginning of the year about this Richter House. That was the teen
Yeah.
who got a military
Kyle.
grade gun.
Yeah, Kyle Rittenhouse. Yeah.
He crossed a border and started shooting protesters. That doesn't happen in here. We have had very violent protests, and the only time I've heard about shootings during this one was an American tourist who had his gun and shot the protesters because he felt threatened. So obviously, as we don't have those shootings in here, we had to import them from the USA. And I'm going to finish this with one meme that I've seen over and over again. We have no idea how to stop this, says only country in the world when this happens. It's awful how over there you have no control over guns. Anyone can get any type of military weapon, buy as many bullets as you want. And something like this school shooting happens, and NRA fans get together and they say, we need more guns. I'm going to actually put this BBC article talking about those guys saying that their solution to the guns problem is more guns. And it's awful.
Which is ridiculous. But Genevieve, what you got to say?
Well, I have to gather my thoughts because there are so many things to say about the situation. I guess I will start off with just a quick correction, Cindy, about the toll. there were 19 children and 2 teachers who were killed, and then the husband of one of those teachers had a heart attack when he came back to the school to visit his wife's memorial. So I'll throw him in there as well in the death toll.
Yeah, I was going to as well.
But
Mhm.
it's maddening and so frustrating as an American citizen who has gone through these public schools, who has done these school shooter drills for most of her life. I can't believe I cannot believe that the first one wasn't enough, because that is exactly what has happened in every other country. Because you're right, Teo, we are the only nation where this crisis happens. Every single other nation that has had a mass shooting like this, they immediately went into action. They immediately implemented change, and I understand why that hasn't happened here, because we have this insane gun culture. But I guess I had hoped, just like I had hoped after Sandy Hook, I had hoped that the massacred bodies of innocent elementary school children would have been enough for people in this country to rethink the relationship that we have with guns. But apparently not. The other thing about this situation that is so unique is the response from the police. Because I know that we have been saying for decades that we have a massive problem with the ineptitude and corruption of the police in America. But to see it in this situation, to see that they were called before he ever came to the school, they were being called while they were standing out there. They were tackling and arresting parents who were trying to go in and save their children, and it took them over an hour to actually go in there and do anything because, oh no, we might get hurt. Okay, that's kind of your fucking job. Do you think that you signed up to be a police officer? And when you have literal children being gunned down en masse, locked in a room with a guy with an AR-15, that might not be a situation where you should step in? So it's frustrating because I'm sick of hearing this narrative of the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun, because the data does not back that up. There has been less than 3% of cases of an active shooter that was stopped by a good guy with a gun. And apparently these trained police officers can't do it either. So I don't know what we do now. I I I am so angry and so frustrated. Um and I will recollect my thoughts and pass it back to you, Cynthia.
No worries. No, it is maddening. It is maddening. It's crazy that it seems like that every time that a news happens, we're in another mass shooting. It's let me collect my thoughts for a second. So since the recording of this particular show, we also know that there was a mass shooting in Tulsa, Oklahoma. At least 4 people were dead, and multiple people were injured at a shooting at the Natalie building at St. Francis Hospital. And there have been other mass shootings that have transpired after that. And the only thing that we seem to get is thoughts and prayers. Our thoughts and our prayers are with the families and the victims of this terrible tragedy. And then we have another one. And then our thoughts and prayers are with the families and the victims of this terrible tragedy. And then we have another one. And I wanted to speak a little bit on the gun culture specifically here in the United States, because it's not that we have a gun culture, because other countries do. We just don't have proper enforcement. We just don't have like proper legislation to actually enforce proper gun control like other countries do, even though that their guns exist. I mean, like, I think specifically of Sweden. I think that John Oliver, the Daily Show talked about Sweden a while back, after, I want to say either Buffalo happened or Uvalde. I think Uvalde happened. And they have less than a 0.2%, a 0.002% murder rate in Sweden. And they have a pretty large population of gun owners. But one thing that they do have is very strict laws on who can actually own a gun. Matter of fact, every gun that is purchased in Sweden has to be registered with the federal government. And the law enforcement knows what gun, who has what. It's registered as far as their serial numbers are concerned. So if you fuck up with your gun, they come after you. It's not this whole thing about depending on where you go, you can purchase a gun on your 18th birthday, an AR-15, which in my opinion, nobody, no citizen or resident or any person that is outside of the military should have a military style weapon. What the fuck do you need a goddamn AR-15 for? And people are like, well, I hunt. I said, well, you can use a single shot rifle to hunt. Because the last time I saw like hunting videos, I don't necessarily think that the damn deer shoot back. Okay? They don't. So you don't need a military style weapon that actually shoots 200 to 300 rounds per minute. That's ridiculous. So this whole thing, and it's even crazy how like an 18-year-old can go ahead at their birthday and purchase an AR-15, but they can't have a drink. So they can't do other things until they're like 21, but they can own a military style gun that can kill people. And I don't understand how we are so stonewalled in our country when it comes to even having a proper conversation about what do we do about these guns, because at this particular point it's affecting the entire populace in some shape, way, or form. When people decide that they're having a bad day, like in Uvalde, like in Buffalo, like that guy left his home, drove 200 miles to a predominantly black community and shot 10 people when they were grocery shopping. And so he had a whole 180 page manifesto talking about the Great Replacement Theory. And if you guys want to know more about that, watch last week's show. But anywho, there is still an inept legislators that we are dealing with when it comes to trying to actually come up with solutions. And it's to the point where we're here in the United States are so jaded and we're so tired because we know it's going to happen again. I mean, like, I am sincerely fearful for the children that is under me. I have a 12-month-old now. I'm scared shitless to send him to school, because if he does go to school, I don't know if he's going to come back alive. I don't know. And I mean, like in Illinois, where I live, we do have pretty strict gun laws, but these neighboring states like Wisconsin and Indiana and Minnesota don't. And a lot of the guns that come into our city, because everybody says, well, what about Chicago? That's usually like the moving of the goalpost fallacy that we always get when we're trying to have this conversation. Those are illegal guns that are coming in from those particular states because they don't have proper gun control laws, in my opinion, so that these guns are coming in and people are shooting. But one of the things that we don't have a lot of in Chicago right now is mass shootings. We don't. We may have like something that's on the corner. We may have something that's on the blocks. We may have like, inter-gang violence or what have you when it comes to that stuff, but we really don't have mass shootings like that. A lot of times when we see mass shootings of this particular caliber, it's within states that have very loose gun laws. And it's kind of crazy how like we have the issue here, but we have neighbors to the north of us and neighbors to the south of us that as soon as they saw what happened here in the United States, they enacted stricter gun laws on the federal level like Canada did. So I don't know why, I don't understand why it's so hard. Why is it so hard for us to really get it together to the point where we can really say that we are about saving lives? Because the same people who want to continuously have the status quo of being lax when it comes to gun laws are the same people who are pushing overarching legislations to ban abortions because they're so pro-life. But I'm sorry, fuckhead, you're not pro-life. Because if you were pro-life, then that energy that you have for banning abortions would also go into actually banning guns as well, especially military style weapons. And I'll stop right there, and I'm going to go ahead and open it back up to you guys so that we can carn ahead and just like stir the pot a little bit, and then we're going to close on out. So Cindy, I'm going to go back to you because I know that one of the things that not only that you talked that you have within your notes is just like stats, but you also have some solutions and thoughts. So please help us out.
Yes. First of all, I just wanted to come back to what you said about hunting. In the last couple of days, several Republicans have been interviewed and asked, why do people need an AR-15? And many of them said to hunt raccoons, to hunt foxes, to hunt feral pigs. I mean, why would you need an AR-15 to shoot at a raccoon when shooting a kid with this weapon makes them unrecognizable for the parents? They had to make DNA tests or look at the clothes, the shoes. Matthew McConaughey had a very moving speech yesterday about this. How is it possible that you give people weapons so powerful that when they shoot kids, they cannot be recognized by their parents?
Right.
That that's that's crazy. I can't believe how this is still happening. So, like you said,
Oh, can I interject this really quickly? The with military style weapons, specifically with AR-15s, if they shoot you, they leave an exit wound that's the size of a grapefruit. And that's the reason why that a lot of these children could not be recognized, and they had to use DNA tests in order for them to identify them. And I will shut up now. Please, Cindy, continue.
so since Uvalde, there's been, as of Monday this week, 33 mass shootings. Since Columbine, there's been 240 shootings and 554 deaths in schools. And I wanted to talk about one solution that, in my mind, is not talked enough, is to focus one certain population. We know that banning AR-15 will never work. We know that Republicans will never do it. We know the position of the Supreme Court on this, so that won't happen. But we can focus on behavior. Nearly 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men will experience severe physical violence at the hand of their intimate partner in their lifetime. Nearly half of women murdered in the United States are killed by a current or former intimate partner, and more than half of these intimate partner homicides are by firearm. And women are 5 times more likely to be murdered by an abusive partner when the abuser has access to a gun. And the worst statistics that staggered me when I read it is that nearly 92% of all women on the planet killed by guns, well, not on the planet, but in high income countries, were American women, 92%. And so we need to make sure that anyone who had a history of abuse, whether it's children, whether it's partners, whether it's animals even, we need to make sure they never have a gun, because according to the statistics, it's between 55 and 60% of mass shootings are committed by people who had previously issues of domestic abuse. So that's something that can be done, because I don't see how Republicans could answer the question, why won't you remove guns from people who are violent and kill already people? That's an unanswerable question. So they can be pushed through this angle, and they should be. That's one solution that could be implemented relatively easily.
Yeah. Um,
This is this
yeah.
is so awful, and there are so many things to say about this.
Hmm.
Um,
It
So
it is. Go
Teo,
ahead.
I don't know if I oh sorry, I was just gonna say
No,
Teo,
go ahead.
if you
No,
would
go
like
ahead,
to
Genevieve.
contribute. I So I do not mean to dominate the conversation, but as an American and also as a gun owner who has lived in rural areas of this country, I do want to sort of speak back on something that we were discussing earlier about gun culture and why these common sense things, like you just mentioned, Cindy, are going to be difficult to implement. And a lot of that is because there is a deep misunderstanding of the perspective of people on the right who are at this point terrified of this boogeyman coming to steal your guns that has been crafted and fed to them on networks like Fox News. It's it's an insane amount of misinformation that is leading people to reject things that are so common sense and things that are so backed up by data. Because you're absolutely right, Cynthia. They will say, "What about Chicago?" and then neglect the fact that most of the shootings that happen in Chicago are from guns from another state. Or
Hmm.
even when we're talking about Mexico, like if a president wants to call your country a shithole country or a violent country, he's neglecting the fact that there is only one place in Mexico where you can legally buy a weapon, and all of the guns that are there came from the United States.
Mm.
Largely all of the
yep.
guns that are there came from us.
Hmm.
When you look at the data these laws work, the states in this country that have the highest rates of murder and gun violence are the states with the most relaxed gun laws. And until we can bridge this gap of understanding, I don't know if we're going to be able to make sweeping national change, but we need to.
And there is one thing that I've seen in Americans and their love to guns, and it's that they are not responsible. And Americans see guns as toys. You can see pictures of guns how they are huge and full of small parts, and they are sold as toy for grown-ups. And they don't see them as the deadly hazard that they are. They see them as toys for adults. I've seen guys cutting trees with freaking guns that they can go and buy in the supermarket. Cutting trees. I mean, what the heck is wrong with you people? This week there was a baby that shot his father with a gun. What type of father takes a gun and let the baby hold the gun? The idiot died. And you know what? That's another problem. Your country, I know the whole planet, but your country, I've heard idiots saying, oh, there are school shootings. You have to give guns to the teachers. If you think that, you are a fucking idiot. And I can't believe that I have to breathe the same air than you, waste of oxygen. Okay, okay, I'm going to calm down myself, but we we were supposed to record this last week, and the previous episode I was talking about guns as well, and at the same freaking time that we were talking about the mass shooting that happens the previous week, there were like 2 or 4 more shootings in the USA, which is very sad, pretty ironic, and yeah, guys, it became so awful that journalists have to decide which one of the 4 mass shootings are we going to talk about. The one with most that got more people killed, the one that was I don't know, more impactful, whatever. Imagine having to choose which one of those awful events you're going to talk about. So yeah, it's a whole problem with not having a responsible gun ownership culture, and for me that's the biggest issue. And as Cynthia said, you are 18 years old, you can buy a military machine gun, but you cannot buy a beer. What is wrong with people? Oh yeah, I know the NRA having power, political power, and people who get lots of money. Politicians getting lots of money from the NRI.
NRA,
Yeah,
the National
yeah,
Rifles
those guys, those pieces of
Association. Yeah,
they,
them. Well, I'm
those.
going to. Well, I am. I know that this is something that we can talk about a lot, but we do have more segments. But if you all don't mind, I'm just going to wrap us up by saying a few things. Um, there was a Supreme Court justice. I wish I could remember his name, but he was appointed by um, Tricky Dicky. That would be Nixon, Richard Nixon. And when he retired, he was interviewed in 1991. I want to say either by CNN or ABC News. I should have wrote this down, but I watched this, and I just want to repeat something that he said specifically. And I found it was very interesting because he himself was very conservative. He served under a Republican president, and he was what the quintessential look and feel of as conservative that conservative gets. And one of the things that he said when they were talking about specifically the Second Amendment, he basically, and I'm just paraphrasing, that he called the Second Amendment bullshit, and it should be revisited. And this is the reason why. A lot of times when we're having these conversations about gun control, common sense gun laws, and the like, a lot of people like to bring up, well, what about our Second Amendment rights? The Second Amendment, when it was written in 1789. At that particular time period, America was just finishing up a Revolutionary War, and about 12 years later, they ended up in another war with the same country that they were fighting for independence. They did not have a military that was organized on its own. There was no army, there was no navy, there was no Marines, and there were damn sure was no armed air force. Okay, so since that was the case, militias often were formulated through the provinces that ended up becoming states through able-bodied men, according to history, to defend their property and land and women and children. That was in the 1780s going to the early 1800s. We have evolved since then, having the largest military in the entire world. And we also have a National Guard here in the States. So if anybody want to try it and invade the United States, then they would actually be met with force with properly trained people. There is, again, no reason for any citizen or resident to own a military style gun, because there is no reason for you to be in a fucking militia defending shit. Just get your single rifle and shoot a pig and be happy and stop this bullshit, because we'll be back here next week. How are we feeling, guys?
Awful.
Teachers unionize because you are constantly weaponized for political purposes. So go for it.
That part too. I know that a lot of the public schools do have unions. Depending on where you are, your union could be weak or it could be fairly strong. I know the one in Chicago is a pretty strong one. They fight the mayor about every day. But it definitely does mean that we all, and I understand that we have like a whole thing about call to action, but I constantly say this, and I'm going to continue to say this. But if you audience members who are watching this feel some kind of way and you are kind of tired, I suggest you talk to your representatives, because they're the only ones who can change it. And on that note, let's take a break from our conversation. And if you didn't tune into the other ACA shows last week, here is what you've missed.
At the same time, I know for myself, like, I cannot get certain worship songs out of my head. And at 2 a.m., that can be a more perverse torture than any fear I could possibly conjure.
There are numerous verses talking about the inferiority of women compared to men. There's a verse right now I'm looking at. The men are worth 50 shekels of silver, while women are worth only 30. We equally need to look at the way the Bible is interpreted and practiced.
Other medical professionals and health experts, they're the ones who've invested the time, the study into actually getting, wait for it, because this is very important, facts. And I know that's a dirty word to some people.
I don't think you can say
but
that on YouTube.
You can go to any local community college, spend a couple bucks, you can take a course on linguistics and learn about how languages have developed. And it has nothing to do with the Tower of Babel, which is it's a fairy tale, my friend.
Okay, thank you guys for your time. You have a very blessed, let me see, I'm sorry, I gotta watch my language.
You can just say good. Have a good day. Don't trigger me, Jeffrey. I'll go off the rails.
I'll get real emotional.
Have a penis, John.
I win. Goodbye.
Well.
How weak and vapid of an argument do you have to just scream I win and hang up? That's kind of rough, yo. That's incredibly reductionist, and it's like saying that a woman is just a thing that can have babies. It's really anti-feminist and pretty gross. So sorry, that's not how anything works, dude.
Team Forest. Hashtag Team Forest.
I win. So end the show.
And we are back. And we are now going into the next segment. And Genevieve, you were big before, so let's make you big again. And won't you go ahead and bring us into this?
Yes. Let's move into the lighter topic of sexual abuse and cover-ups in the church. We're not talking about the Catholic Church this time. This is a topic that we've covered quite a few times on the Nonprofits Now, but we have some updates. I'm talking, of course, about the Southern Baptist Convention and the report that was released at the end of last month. Now, this is a report that was done by an independent group, Guidepost Solutions. It was commissioned by the Southern Baptist Convention to get to the bottom of all of these things that have been coming out about them over the last 3 years. So this report took 7 months to compile. They primarily looked at extensively at data that they had from the last 20 years, but the report does go into situations that happened going back to the 60s and before. Essentially, it's no surprise we have found that the Southern Baptist Convention and the Southern Baptist denomination, all the churches that fall under that umbrella, have a big problem with systematic abuse of both children and adults. And the big issue in this report that they found is that the decisions of what to do when a victim would come forward was largely left up to a small core group of people within the executive committee. And time again, they chose not to protect the victims, who were their flock in their churches, but to preserve the reputation and the image of the Southern Baptist Convention. So, of course, this is not surprising. It is very frustrating. We are getting a lot of different responses. The report included some action items that the Southern Baptist Convention could take if they wanted to rectify the situation as best as they can, because I personally don't think that there's really anything you can do to rectify hundreds of counts of abuse and cover-ups. But I guess the next question is to see is, will they actually do anything, and will this get any better? And, of course, why the fuck is this happening? So I would love to hear all of your thoughts about this, because there is quite a bit that we can talk about here.
Let's start off with the whole, moving on to a lighter topic. Let's talk about sexual abuse in the church.
Yeah, you and I have different ideas of what lighter is.
Clearly joking. Oh my word. Sometimes you just have to laugh when you can't cry anymore.
No, that's real. That's real. I mean, like, it's kind of interesting. Like, this is like an update about the leaders being utilized in a certain way, of like putting basically like some of the things that came to light concerning these whole sexual abuse scandals with the SBC. It's kind of funny when I was reading some of the article. It seemed to me, even though that it was supposed to be an independent organization that was doing this particular study, it seemed a bit to the point where they were kind of empathetic to the leadership of the SBC. That's something I gathered, and this is and this is something I said specifically. So it looks like the SBC took some direction from the Catholic Church, and their investigation revealed that for many years, a few senior EC leaders, along with outside counsel, largely controlled the EC response to these reports of abuse. But the article states that the most recent list includes the names of hundreds of abusers thought to be affiliated at some point with the SBC. So it does not sound like a few leaders to me. So like, because like one of the things that they also said like is that the SBC was saying that, oh, it was just only a few bad apples, right? There's a few, few leaders that, happened to do this and it was egregious, but there's always going to be bad apples. And so that's that. But it's not just a few people, as like the report starts to actually show, and it's even more disgusting when they said that in service of this goal, survivors and others who reported the abuse, as you mentioned, Genevieve, were ignored, disbelieved, or met with constant refrain that the SBC could take no action due to its policy regarding church autonomy. And if that ain't a load of bullshit, I don't know what it is. Cindy, talk about some bullshit with me real quick, if you don't mind.
I can talk about bullshit all day if you want. So what is staggering in these different religious sexual abuse cases is that every time the leaders are notified, the congregates complain about it. They rarely file complaints to the police, but they are systematically silenced. As you said, it takes decades of work often from a very small number of victims. Like it was in this case, it's one victim who started the investigation to uncover the scandal. It takes victims to do the work, which is outrageous in itself. And the cynicism that's required to claim that you are basically better than everyone because that's what every religion proclaims. And at the same time, raping kids and covering up those who do it is just pure evil, to use their vocabulary. So when you have an organization whose doctrine revolves around the idea that you are the chosen people, that God speaks to us, that we have a direct link to Him, that you cannot be good without this God that we have, there cannot be any acceptance of the very idea that someone inside this institution can be evil or act evil. And since the image projected by the organization is crucial to its very existence, there is very, very strong incentive to keep scandals under the rug. We cannot trust religious organization, just like we can't trust big companies or banks or even the police. There's the same issue in there. We need to forget the fantasy of the good priest at the center of the community that we inherited from medieval Europe. Priests are humans, nothing more, nothing less. And religion at this point are criminal organizations, nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, and that's not hyperbole nor conjecture. That's fact because it's been documented. See said report. Teo, before you explode, because I did see like the I don't know, like the cartoon emoji of the angry face. Yes, the angry face. I'm going to give you a chance to go ahead and vent because that's self care. So go ahead, please.
I'm fucking sick of tired of talking about this. Whenever, as you said, the evangelical church is following the Catholic Church steps. They are protecting pedophiles. This has been happening for years, decades. I have talked so many times about Catholic Church doing unspeakable, awful things to children, not even killing them and burying under their school in Canada, not only abusing them, not only using them as sexual slaves at orphanages, all the times, all the priests that we have been talking about, all the cases that happened with the Jehovah Witnesses in Australia, Bacha Basi, this Pakistani tradition where they rape little boys, all the Mormons and their close cults where they marry young girls with older guys. And now it's not surprise. We know that these things have happened, but now we finally have confirmation that evangelicals are the same pieces of crap. They do the same shit. They rape children, and they don't even have the awful excuse that the Catholic Church has, like, oh no, it's because the Catholic Church doesn't let those guys have sex and they prey on little children. These guys have wives and whatever, and they are just fucking pieces of shit. This week, the leader of the Iglesia La Luz del Mundo, in English, that is Church of the Living God, Pillar and God of Truth, the Light of the World. Yeah, that's a name that you can Google. The article is going to be in the description. He was, the name of the guy is Nason Joaquin Garcia. He is the leader of this church from Mexico. This church has churches in 60 countries. And this guy just was abusing little girls using his power, and it's being protected by his followers. People try to defend them, and to see that all religions do the same. They have these awful guys, the priests in power. They let them rape little children, and they protect them. It totally upsets me and makes me extremely, extremely, extremely angry. It's awful, it's disgusting, and I wish I didn't have to keep talking about this because it really, really makes me extremely upset. That's it. That's it.
Yeah, I get you, and it's very upsetting when you're constantly it's kind of interesting in the back of my mind. I was even thinking about, like, when we were actually preparing for this show, I was thinking, like, damn, these churches actually keep us in business because they constantly are doing awful things to children, and they keep on giving us stories to talk about them, and yet, the argument is the ones who happens to be agnostic, the one who happens to be irreligious, the one who happens to be a non-believer, are without morals, which right now, when I look at stories like this, is absolutely laughable in a very serious yet sad way. But Genevieve, I want to ask you specifically because I know that you are living in the Bible Belt now, where the Southern Baptist Convention is quite prevalent. Matter of fact, I don't know if you all knew that the Southern Baptist Convention is actually the second largest denomination of Christianity in the United States. And obviously, they are not without their faults. I talked about previously the SBC. The way that they came about is because they had a ought with the North because they wanted to keep slavery, and and so a lot of and so they split from the Baptist Convention to form the SBC because they actually wanted to keep slavery, and to be honest with you, they were more biblically sound. They were actually more biblically sound than their northern neighbors. But I just want to get your thoughts, like growing up not religious, living in the Bible Belt now, and this is not necessarily your environment that you just kind of came into later, and you see or you hear the murmurings or read things like this. What are your thoughts specifically, like on the outside looking in per se?
So I will say, well, first of all, I'm glad to say that I have recently moved out of the Bible Belt. So I'm back up by the Mason-Dixon line. So we're good there. But I will say that it was an incredible culture shock to begin to understand why this happens. Because just as Teo pointed out, this isn't just the Catholic Church, this is not just the Southern Baptist Convention, this is also Jehovah's Witnesses, this is Mormons, this is every single Christian denomination under the sun. I know I live close to Pennsylvania. There's a lot of abuse going on with the Amish. It's a problem that I think comes from two things. Primarily, number one, being in power in a church is something that it's a position that attracts people who have a desire to have power over other people and who have a desire to be influential in their community. It is a perfect cover for people who are just predisposed to be this type of evil, to steal a page from their work. But the second thing is that it does come back to the Bible. It really, really does, because the Bible tells you that all sins are equal. All sins are equal, and it tells you that that the patriarchy is righteous, and that the men are the leaders in your church and they're the leaders in your home. And so essentially what you have to do to protect your godliness is to keep women and children as second-class citizens, and to protect the honor of the men in this group. I am not surprised that, and I'm so glad that you brought up the Southern Baptist role in slavery, because unsurprising, they were directly responsible for a large part of slavery in America and Jim Crow laws, and they have a record of atrocious abuses that get swept under the rug. And I say swept under the rug because if you grow up in this environment, if you do grow up as a Southern Baptist, you're not going to learn this stuff. You're going to be insulated from a lot of these worst stories. And so you're just not going to be informed the way that you should about the reality of the group that you're a part of.
Hashtag teach CRT, right?
But
yes.
Times yes.
Trillion times yes. Let's say I'm going to go ahead and give you the last word before we go ahead and move on to our final segment.
Yeah, I always talk about the harms of religion, and I really, really wish I had nothing to talk about. I really wish my program didn't have to exist and I didn't have anything to talk about, because it's awful, terrible, and very sad that I have something new every single week. That's it.
Indeed. I hear you. Yeah, but this is why we're here, guys. We gotta, like I said, they keep us in business. What can I say? But before we move on to our final segment, if you would like to support us, guys, there's a lot of ways you can do it. One, you can actually become a member of the channel as little as 99 cents per month. So click on the join button below the video, and this will give you access to special chat emojis. Also, we do have a brand new store. Visit tiny.cc/merchaca to get your favorite items like t-shirts, hoodies, and coffee mugs. And you can check out our new items like beanies, phone cases, and tote bags. And all ACA shows feature a special limited edition item each month. So be sure to check out our store for NP merch and merch from our other shows. Thank you. And finally, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this dog and pony show by talking about shit. Internet apologists say.
Shit. Internet apologists say.
And they be saying some shit. And we're going to talk about our favorite internet apologist, Pastor Greg Locke. Oh boy, I love talking about him. So recently, guys, if you go ahead and just get a chance to read the articles, we're actually coming from Newsweek, which actually talks about how Pastor Greg Locke, who called Democrats demons, claims that he gave up his tax-exempt status. That one was written by Anders Anglesey. And then we also have another article from friend of the show, Hamid Mehta, which also talks about the preacher who claims that he dissolved his church tax-exempt status for political gain. So, our favorite shit saying internet apologist is back saying more shit as he talked about how in his church in Nashville and Mount Julia Church, Bible, I think this Global Vision Bible Church. He told his congregation that he considered Democrats to be baby butchers. And he said earlier in the month, you cannot be a Christian and vote Democrat in this nation. And I don't care how mad that makes you. You can get as pissed as you want. Ooh, such words, Pastor Locke. And you cannot be a Christian and vote Democrat in this nation. They are a God denying demon and that butchers babies and hates this nation. And the American United for Separation of Church and State, the AUSCS, stated that, actually said that the Internal Revenue Service should investigate Pastor Greg Locke to determine whether he has made a partisan political remark, because if he did, it could violate the Johnson Amendment that prevents houses of worship from opposing political parties or endorsing candidates. So a letter was actually written on May the 14th to the IRS asking for this to happen. And Pastor Greg Locke decided to respond in a Facebook Live on Sunday, May 22nd, where he renounced his 501c3 status that his church had, quoting him saying, I want everybody online to pay real close attention. I almost brought the document. I was going to burn it right here because, we know that Pastor Greg likes to burn things, and on this television stage, but it ain't worth catching our tent on fire. So guess what I did? I got an attorney and I dissolved our stinking 501c3 status in this church because the government ain't gonna tell me what I can and cannot say. So the IRA ESSA, we don't need your stupid tax exempt status. You can put it in a bag and burn it in front of your yard for all I care. I renounce the 501c3 status communism in this church, and I will yield back. So what we got? I need a good minute or two from everybody. Cindy, I'm going to start with you because you look like you're pondering something. Go ahead.
Yes, that's precisely why the ACA needs to exist in the first place and work efficiently, because you cannot have these kind of people influencing elections like he's trying to do, because all religions are about othering people. And I think the US has enough of this in politics. They don't need more of it. Um, so yeah, we need to prevent people like him to do such things. But the other thing that comes to my mind is how much of his speech does he actually believe?
Well, you know what? I thought that he knew that they were going to remove the 501c3 from him. So he decided to say, no, I am going to do it before. But then, guys, in the USA, if you want to give to charities, there are places where you can go. And please go and check irs.gov/charities-non-profits and search for your charities. You can find them right there. And you know what? Greg Locke's institution is not there. It is not part of the institutions with 501c3. So he's renouncing nothing. He's just lying. A pastor lying! Shocking! Yeah, can you believe it?
I know, right?
I mean,
What do you think about Genevieve?
I just want to start off and say some men will start crazy conspiracy cults instead of going to therapy, and it just blows my mind. I mean, I could talk forever about all of the crazy things that we know about Greg Locke, from outing witches in his church to burning Harry Potter and Twilight books and Andrew Seidel's book, to this stuff. But I don't want to lose sight of the fact that this is genuinely a dangerous guy. He is known for these off the wall headlines, but he has millions of followers, and he uses violent rhetoric, claiming that over half of the population in America are literally possessed by demons.
Mhm.
And after what we just saw in Buffalo, I think we understand that that has very real consequences. And I will take so much pleasure at laughing at his stupid ass, but I also just want to remind people that their words have consequences. And it is not normal to have influential people claiming that half of the country is possessed by demons and that you are not a Christian if you vote for somebody that he doesn't like.
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are very much so correct. Pastor Greg Locke, even though like we like to end on a high note when it comes to, you know, some dumb shit that he has to say, and I say he has to say it only because it's what gives him clicks, likes, and views, and more followers to basically bolster his message and to share it so that more people are influenced by the batshit craziness things that he says. I didn't call him batshit crazy, but I did say that the things that he says is batshit crazy. Okay. I don't know his personal behavioral health issue or if there are any. But I do know that the things that he does say are dangerous, like you said, Genevieve, and that people actually are listening to him. And that is like the scariest thing in the world, because like that means that people are actually sharing the same ideology as this person. And the last thing that we need in this particular country is people to share conspiracy theories and actually look to the path of reason. Hint, hint, Cindy Plaza. Now, before we go, guys, I just want to just tell you a few more things. We would really love for you to continue the conversation, and you can do that by joining our fan social media outlets. You can find most of the nonprofits hosts on the atheist community of Discord by going to tiny.cc/ACD Discord and on Facebook at tiny.cc/FBNP. And if you would like to support the show, you can do so by becoming a patron at tiny.cc/PatreonNP. And if you find yourself already shopping at Amazon, support the atheist community of Austin by shopping at smile.amazon.com and selecting the atheist community of Austin as the beneficiary. Be sure to use the link to help out the ACA, and we really do appreciate it. And also, guys, we do value your feedback. So tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, and all the rest of it in the comment section below, like the lovely person who told me that I was a political neophyte just because I did not know the difference between conservatism and Christian nationalism and the like, and all that other great stuff. Please see my reply to the comments, sir. I think you will get a kick out of it. And also, you can also write us an email, if you like, at nonprofits@atheist-community.org. So we really do appreciate all that feedback and the like. So please get on that right away. And if we can just get like a quick 30 seconds from everybody on your particular thoughts and just a quick line from everybody. I will start with you, Cindy.
I'm very glad to have been here today. We've been talking about very, very important topics. I hope this mass shooting spree is going to be dealt with at some point. I'm not very optimistic though. So yeah, I hope we'll meet again.
Teo, 2 seconds.
Thank you for inviting me. Love you guys.
And Genevieve.
Yep, I'm just going to echo what Teo said. Yeah, it's super great doing this with you guys. It's really amazing. I love seeing your faces. I also wish we didn't have to talk about this stuff. I wish we didn't have to do this, but we do. So while we're here, thank you.
Well, I would like to end with that being said, a quote from the great James Baldwin. Not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. And with that being said, thank you all for joining us today, and we will see you next time.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.